So big question right here, and I get this one all the time, and it is, should you bulk or should you cut? Should you be into maintenance? What should you do? What should you look for body fat percentage wise? And what should you do in your position? Now, a lot of women like to have more curvy shapes to them. They want to keep their glutes, they want to keep their chest. They don't want to lose everything and go flat. Now, here's the trouble with that is that majority of the times, a lot of people are just holding on to a lot of body fat. Males as well. So sometimes the males will come in and they want to keep their chest because that's a masculine feature, and they want to keep their arms because if they thin out or anything like that, they're gonna look like little boys. Also, they don't want their legs to thin out too much. But in reality, just from my own previous experiences, is that you have to hit a bunch of cycles of dropping off weight and making gains. A lot of women will start off with 0 glutes and they'll have all body fat, and they'll be happier in the long run because they put on muscle mass onto their glutes, because those will never go. Those were made with hard work, and as well they'll have the same volume, so the same circumference of glutes that a woman that didn't necessarily have glutes prior would have, versus someone who is just based on solely genetics. Now, will some women have more genetics for glutes than others? Yeah. Most of the time you're going to see this in the hip circumference. So when women come and they're like, can I build my hips to be wider? No, not necessarily. You're either born with those wide hips or you're not. So it doesn't matter how much adductions you do, they're not going to make your hips any wider. As for men, they get a bunch of chest fat and then they think that that's their pecs. And what happens is that when they start pulling back all that body fat, they look like a 15-year-old boy. So, moral of the story is that if your body fat is at a high percentage, I highly recommend that you should start cutting that body fat off. For women, around 18 to 25% body fat is a good range, even 20 to 25%. And you can start a bulk there. If you're upward to like 30, 40%, you got to get out of there. Like, just get out as soon as possible. Same thing with men. If you're above 20% body fat, that is not cool. You're not cool in a 20% body fat. Men are going to be at higher risk for diabetes, hypertension, high cholesterol, high blood pressure, and things like that. Triglycerides within your blood much easier than women will, because we can't really hold a high body fat percentage. You just got to get out. Women can hold a higher body fat percentage, and based on their genetic makeup, yeah, maybe they'll have less chance of adopting these things, but they're still at potential risk, especially when you're approaching 40 to 50% body fat based on your age and things like that. But if we go back to it and we're talking about, should you cut or should you bulk? Let's look at it from the other perspective. There are people that started off with high body fat percentages and started bulking straight out of the gate. And what ends up with them, majority of the time, is that they're in a bulk for life. You've seen it. These people are massive. Everybody's thinking it. They're like, man, this dude would be so insane if he just cut. Or this woman would be so insane if they just cut. Why? Because they put on maybe this amount of muscle mass and this volume on them. And it is easier for someone to obtain more muscle mass going from a higher body mass index. So just being a bigger person, whether it's their calves, they won't have to go through calf raises again, whether it's their glutes, and they put on glutes while they were in a higher body fat percentage. but conditioning wise, they suffer. They can barely run a mile. They can barely run 3. They can fitness wise, it's out. Also, cutting that body fat, most of them can never cut it off. They can never get to a certain weight frame that is actually good for them. And as well as they see themselves in a bigger picture of like, I'm much bigger, I'm a bigger person. So they never actually cut off and shed off all the initial body fat that they put on, and they get complacent a lot earlier, where it's like later on this body fat was detrimental to your health. So, weigh out both options on what you want to do. But those forever bulkers, they definitely put on a whole bunch of muscle mass on them. But you just really don't see them get rid of the excess body fat. They hold on to a good amount because they feel like they need to stay up there, and that's where they're supposed to be. And they feel like they're supposed to be a much higher weight, when in reality, I feel like that as well. Like my weight lowest was like 167, and you don't imagine yourself going to 155, but there's actually guys my height at 155, not as big legs as me and things like that, but it's like I could potentially get down there and I'll be even more shredded. So based on body fat percentage, illusion wise, what do you want to do? So I hope this clears things for you. And if you have questions, and if this sparked more questions for you, and you want me to address any of these things that I talked about deeper into the topic, just drop a comment below. If you're not subscribed already, subscribe, follow, leave some comments on what it is you think about this or anything like that, so I could get some feedback and then understand if you fully understand, and if you wanted me to dive